NFL players, owners, and Commissioner Roger Goodell met in New York yesterday to discuss various social issues. Colin Kaepernick was not at the meeting. His lawyer said Cap was invited by the players, but not by the NFL or any team executive. After the meeting yesterday, Goodell said players were not asked to commit to standing during the national anthem. That led to this tweet this morning from President Trump. The NFL has decided that it will not force players to stand for the playing of our national anthem. Total disrespect for our great country. Rob Parker is still with us, but Shannon, what happens next?
What happens next?
The college football
Question. Home dinner, maybe a show?
Yeah. I've always thought that once we started talking about this issue, Colin Kaepernick took a knee for a very specific reason: police brutality and social and racial injustice in America. Now, all these other various social issues that the commissioner and these owners keep talking about, but no one wants to address those specific issues, is where I have the problem. Skip, we can do all these meetings we want, but we know what they're trying to do here. I'm willing to pay in order for you to stand. I'll give you a little money for your foundation. I'll show that I care a little bit. But this, in the big picture, is of them getting them to stand for the national anthem. And I said something earlier, Skip, and I want to go back and touch on it. The governor of Wisconsin said he wanted to see the players stand for the anthem and take a stand against domestic violence. Well, Skip, if you tell me what I should protest, you're telling me what's important to you, and you're diminishing it and undervalue what I'm originally protesting. Domestic violence, and I'm saying it's terrible, but that's not the issue which Colin Kaepernick took a knee for.
But obviously, everybody's against domestic violence.
So can't everybody be against racial and social injustice?
They
so
should
basically,
be.
you're telling me everybody can get behind standing against domestic violence.
Yeah.
But this other stuff what y'all talking about, I mean, come on now, we can't all get behind that. No. These owners, and Jerry, they say it was reported that Jerry was approached in the hotel by two protesters, and they asked Jerry about it. He says, "No, I wanted to hear what they wanted. I wanted to hear what they wanted to say and what they were talking about." Jerry, where you been? Those guys are kneeling. Okay, why did you think you knelt in Arizona before the end?
Jerry didn't carry on a conversation with the protesters. He just listened.
Yeah, he wanted to hear what they had to say.
Right.
The guys in the NFL have been talking about this, Jerry, for the last 14 months. Colin Kaepernick. The very reason you're having this was because of what Colin Kaepernick did 14 months ago. And now we keep talking about, and look, I get it. We want to do mandatory minimums. We want to have, less sentencing, and we want the judge to have discretion. I get all that. That goes back to the 80s when the crack epidemic was ruining the inner cities. The mandatory minimums, that's when they put it in. The 3 strikes, that's when they put it in. Now that the opiate addiction is hitting Appalachia and hitting the Rust Belt. Now, all of a sudden, we want to do away with mandatory minimums. All of a sudden, we want to do away with 3 strikes. But back then, when it was Black America, we got to get tough. Now, all of a sudden, jail, that's not the right. Rehab is the right way to go. This was, man, all I'm asking the players is this. They're trying to buy you into a position in which you stand. And you got to be careful of what you give, because I said it before. Givers must be careful of what they give, because takers are never. Don't do it. Don't do it.
This is where the term sellout comes from.
Yes.
This has gone on forever. It's like, okay, here's some money or whatever. Now you can go away, and this is the problem that we've had in the Black community forever, because it's always, this is how you handle, this is how you quiet them down.
Give them a few dollars.
Give them a few dollars, and then they'll go on their way. And it can't be about that. But I still believe that it's the owners who still have the onus that they need to acknowledge that they did something terribly wrong to Colin Kaepernick, that the guy did not break any laws, and they blackballed him for a reason that never should have happened, because the guy had a peaceful protest. This is really the center of it, and I don't believe until they own up to it, and whether it's a job for some team or some situation, what they did is they're the reasons we're here. Okay, Colin Kaepernick might have started, the fire, if you want to call it that, but the reason we're here is that they went and did something totally against everything we know about sports, which is the best man gets a gig, right? The best guy, even playing field, and the best guy gets a job. And what they did was totally wrong, and you can't feel good about it. And I think until they could at least own up to that with the Kaepernick situation or maybe give him a job, I think that would help to solve things right away. Not that it would cure all, but it would help because people feel like he was wrong and he didn't do anything wrong. This is the same league that takes felons and women abusers and child abusers and
guys that have killed people,
everything. And this guy can't play in the league.
I just want to skip, and I want you to take it from here. I just want to hear Commissioner Goodell and one of the owners say the police brutality against unarmed people of color and the racial and social injustice in America needs to change, and the reform and the legislation that we need to get passed. When they say that, I'm going to start taking them serious. Until then, you're trying to buy my silence, and I ain't for sale.
Okay. I'm not going to overvalue this, but just for the record and in fairness to Roger Goodell, he did, for what it's worth, co-sign with Doug Baldwin a letter yesterday to the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it's going right down the path that you want it to go down because this is in support of the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act. It's about lessening the penalty for nonviolent offenders. Okay, so it's something that it's going the right direction. Is it just lip service? Is it just grandstanding by Roger Goodell?
Skip, if I send you to the grocery store to get milk and eggs, and you come back with potato chips, what the hell have you done for me? That's not the issue. That's not what I sent you to the grocery store for.
But it's going down the right path toward reforming the system that is unfair to black people in America, right?
I want the policy. I want legislation with how police deal with people of color. I want the social and racial injustice in America. See, again, this mandatory minimums now, the opiate is bigger than the crack epidemic. And it's hitting Appalachia and the Rust Belt states. So Ohio and the Pennsylvanias and all the states that voted for you-know-who is being affected now. So now it benefits them.
Okay. So, back to your point. Hypothetically, if Colin Kaepernick had had a job from the start of this regular season, would that have ended this? I don't think it would have advanced the cause of the plight of the black community in America.
No. But Skip, but I think the punishment for what this is the part that I think that got to people is that he was finally, here's a high-profile guy, finally speaking up for the black community when so many other black athletes have turned their back on the community.
Right.
Okay.
So then his reward or he gets punished.
Banishment.
Banishment. And you say to yourself, really? This guy didn't, every time I hear, and I've heard it a million times about the fans, my God, do black fans not count?
Patriot, and I told you, and I said this.
I don't get it.
You and I, Skip, and I give Skip credit. Because when we opened our show September 6th of last year, we talked about Colin Kaepernick, and I really thought it was going to be a one-time thing. And I said, Skip, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk
about it, right.
I said, Skip, thanks. I called him. I said, Skip, thank you. And then we kept going. We've been one of the few platforms on television, and Skip is the main reason. Because a lot of times I'm like, man, I don't want to. And even I've had family members call me like, well, Shannon, you're going to talk. I was like, look, Skip is going to give me this opportunity. I'm going to take full advantage of it. But for them to say all of a sudden now he can't play when they come get quarterbacks out of retirement. They
out of arena football leagues.
They go get quarterbacks that haven't thrown a pass in 2 and 3 years. And now it's like, well, he wanted too much money. Like I said, I have a very unique perspective. I've been very fortunate to be able to bridge a relationship with Colin Kaepernick. But I also know some people at teams. I know that Colin didn't know I knew that he had reached out to teams. When you reach out, money isn't the issue. I also know what teams were thinking. So for everybody to say, well, he wanted $9 million. And then there are people like, well, if you think Colin Kaepernick can come in 1 week's time and go out there and learn the offense and compete, okay, what quarterback can?
Nobody.
Can Tom Brady go get Aaron Rodgers' offense and be as effective in that offense as the guy to replace it? No. But you put these unrealistic expectations on Colin to make it look like he can't play. Well, he can't learn an offense in a week. Well, no one can learn an offense in a week. That's why you don't really see the trades that you see in basketball and football.
Right.
Now back to our president. Continues this relentless attack against the protesting players of the National Football
Yes.
League, because it's a pretty brilliant scheme on his part,
It is.
strategy, because popularity waning, to put it mildly, and all of a sudden I'm looking at a poll carried by the New York Times, and back in September, 25% of Trump's who voted for him viewed the NFL somewhat or very unfavorably. All of a sudden, we see a big spike in October because he's on the attack, and all of a sudden, those who voted for him, it's up to 60% now view the NFL in somewhat or very unfavorable light.
Right.
That's stunning. So President Trump is saying, good for me. I got to keep tweeting, and he tweeted again.
Well, but you also got to think about it from this standpoint that he hadn't been able to get anything done. Like all the other
Distraction.
it's a distraction.
Healthcare.
Distraction.
Right.
But what I hate for the sake of the NFL players is he keeps daring them, challenging them, and they feel like, as a man, I got to kneel next Sunday. But every time you kneel, I feel like you might be playing into his hands.
You do, because people then think you're protesting and boycotting him.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you look at LeBron in that article, he says it's hard for me to believe the state that I live in voted for him. GQ article. It's hard for me to believe
Yep.
the state that I live in voted for him, and some of these are my fans. He says hard for me to believe.
Well,
And I think the other part is that the owners would rather have football players with concussions than a conscience, and that's really where we are. Is that people have conscience? We live in a different. It's just
different now.
It's just different.
Everything's changed. But to me, I think it all falls on the owners, actually, because the players have been forced into a corner, like you said, and with Trump tweeting, it's now something has to give. Well, you're the powerful ones.
you are.
So
Yeah.
you're the ones that's
Handle
happen.
him.
Yep. Well, the Yankees win again today.
Yes.
Skip and Shannon make their
Houston will never win again. You heard it first.